What do you get when you cross a Tech-priest and a Dunecrawler? I have no idea, but let's find out. What is up, everybody? Welcome back. We got another Kit Bash video this time around. I wanted to try something a little bit different and make maybe the biggest Tech-priest that's ever been made. At least the biggest one that is theoretically tabletop legal. This isn't a particularly easy project, and as Pete the Wargamer would say,
I'll be giving this guide the full 5 dead animal bits out of 5.
But let's get right into it, starting with the pieces we'll need. I started off with the normal Onager Dunecrawler legs because they're absolutely iconic and perfect, and no one should ever touch them, ever. Ever. And I also had a Tech-priest Manipulus sitting around from my battle force that I picked up from that box that I got on sale from my pile of shame. Those were the two main components going into this mod, but there's also a whole bunch of other greeblies and parts that I used, including a bunch of bits from the Zoids box, the chassis of the Dunecrawler, and some stuff from Age of Sigmar, and some mechadendrites, and some green stuff, and a little bit of sculpting later on as well. Like I said, not really an easy project. But the first thing to do was to bulk out the chassis because it was way too shallow to fit an entire Tech-priest on and make it look good. So first thing I did was pick up a piece that I thought would fit well onto it, dry fit that to make sure it would bulk out the chassis in the way I wanted, and then see what kind of angle I could get on the Manipulus to position him in a way that also looked good. I settled on a portion from the Zoids model kits, which looked great, but there were annoying tabs in a few places that made it look too much like a model kit and wouldn't let it sit flush with the rest of the chassis, so I would have to remove those. After a bit of careful snipping, it looked a lot better and a lot more in line with what I was going for, so I was confident attaching it to the chassis at that point. With the main bulking out done, I was ready to prepare the Tech-priest for his surgery. At this point in the project, I also picked up a few bits from my Korean model kit. If you didn't see my adventures in Korea, you can check out that video as well. But getting on to the Tech-priest Manipulus, he would not do with his long tattered cloak getting in the way of his ability to properly sit down on this device. So after approximating his position with a little bit of, I guess what you could call it is theoretical dry fitting, since I couldn't actually fit him onto the model, I decided to cut along his belt line and then position him properly. So snipping away his cloak and a little bit of plastic nubbins he had hanging off of his belt, I was able to get him not exactly flush with the rest of the chassis, but in a good enough position where I was confident that he would stay in a secure spot and it could eventually be made to look pretty good. It was at this point, after attaching the priest to the chassis, that I realized that I had made him face backwards. Back was the front and the front was the back, and I didn't realize it until it was too late. Well, sometimes that happens and we just have to go with it. So from now on, I'm doing the rest of this chassis in reverse. First order of business was to greeble out the front, or back. One of them. And to do that, I took a couple of parts from the Dunecrawler itself, as well as an Age of Sigmar bit from a Caradon Overlord, and just kind of mushed them in there to build out the front, make it look like it was an actual machine that was supposed to do something instead of just a bunch of random plastic put together. With the front details I also greebled out the sides and the back just a little bit to cover up any grievous holes in the model and to again just add detailing here and there to make it look like more of a complete product. With most of the holes covered, we were in a pretty good spot, but there were still a couple of big offenders towards the back of the model itself that would have to be taken care of. At this point, I also started thinking about how I wanted to mount some sort of weapon to this model, because if it was going to be fielded as a Dunecrawler, it would of course need some kind of crazy, insane gun. Otherwise, wouldn't really be a Dunecrawler now, would it? So I picked up a couple of bits and started messing around with placing them on the non-axe wielding side of the model to get a little bit of balance, and started thinking about how I could potentially mount a weapon there. Tried some bits from the Zoids kit, tried some bits from the Dunecrawler kit. Stuff was looking okay, but each one presented its own problems. There were a lot of issues where there was housing, but no actual gun, or there was a gun, but no actual housing. It was going to be kind of tough to come up with a solution to the weapon that this model should have. Until I came across this crazy thing from a Warhammer Fantasy kit I picked up a little while ago that I still had plenty of bits from. It looked super cool and weirdly kind of like arcane, but also technological in an interesting way that I thought could be like some sweet new archaeotech or something like that. The only problem was its mounting system made it look absolutely ridiculous on the model. It just would not fit. There was not space to put this thing on there. But then that got me thinking. I came up with an idea, a potential solution to the problem. What if I could just suspend the disc in midair around the Tech-priest? That looks absolutely sick. However, I'm not actually a magical person, so some creative thinking would be required. But I was pretty convinced that that was the look I wanted to end up going for, because I mean, just look at it. It's rad. While I set that aside to ponder the deeper meanings of levitation, magnetism, and any sort of trick I could get to get that thing to hover in midair, I went about greebling up the rest of the model. Putting in a bunch of bag of dendrites, putting in some more just gap fillers and things like that to make sure we were set with everything in place before we got to mounting the actual disc itself. The Frisbee of Doom, I think I'll call it. That sounds like a Warhammer thing, right? It looked very cool just as a bit, but I thought the little flames shooting off the side were a little bit too fantastical. So after some careful clipping and shaving away, I got it into a nice disc shape. But the problem remained. How am I going to put this thing on the freaking model? Well, I did come up with a solution, but to see it, you're going to have to watch part 2. This video is already getting a little bit long, and to be honest, the solution isn't an easy one. It's a bit complicated, and I want to tell you guys exactly how I did it in case you want to pull off a similar effect with your models, because this effect could theoretically be used to levitate anything. So if you're interested in learning the secrets of the Omnissiah, be sure to stay subscribed and hit that subscribe button if you aren't already, so you can catch part 2 and see the finished product of what I'm calling the Artillerist. And if you enjoyed this part of the Kit Bash, please be sure to throw me a like. It helps me out very much. And let me know in the comments, have you seen any other bigger tech priests out there? I haven't, but I don't know everything. So let me know. I always love looking at cool kit bashes. And I'll catch you later in part 2. Peace!